from Noblesville here, city council, so I don't know if they're gonna speak at all. But my recommendation is we just let them speak and say their piece and don't rebuttal them. We can, when it comes time for our comments, we can make our written comments we want to about it.
Can I just leave when they start them to speak?
We can doze off.
But
Don't
Ken,
encourage that. I'm constantly elbowing him already.
Yep, you're good to go.
good evening, everybody. April, almost 70 degrees, huh? 75. We actually had snow plows out last week. Snow plows out last week. Hard to believe, but let's rejoice in what we have here today. So let's do our Pledge of Allegiance. We're very pleased to have Rob Griebentrog with On-Site International Prayer to lead us in prayer after our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Rob, you know the drill?
Let's pray. Father, we bless you, we honor you, I worship you tonight in this place. And God, as it says on the wall, in God we trust, we do trust in you. I thank you for your faithfulness and your generosity to us, the citizens of Westfield, throughout the history of its existence. And we thank you that you are still every bit as good today as you have always been. Father, tonight as we meet, would you reveal your goodness to us in a fresh, new, personal way. And Lord, as we meet in this time, may the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be pleasing to you. And Father, if they're not there quite yet, will you help them to become so by the end of this night. We bless you, we worship you in this time and this place. We thank you for this opportunity to meet again in person. You do all things well. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you so much. Mr. Johns, will you preside over the meeting, please?
I will. Cindy Gossard, would you please call the roll, see if we have a quorum?
Troy Patton,
I am here.
Scott Fry,
Here.
Mike Johns,
Here?
Joe Edwards,
Here.
Jake Gilbert,
Here.
Cindy Spalcherick,
Here.
Scott Willis.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Thank you, thank you. Before we start the meeting, I would like to introduce Ann Poindexter. Ann is from the firm Altman, Poindexter & Wyatt, and she is the council's attorney. We've asked Ann to join us tonight and for future meetings. So thank you, Ann. Pleased to be here. At this point, first thing on the agenda is to announce any changes to the agenda. The agenda as you have it and as is posted on the door is the correct agenda, and there have been no changes made to that. All right. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for April 12th, 2002. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
So moved by Scott. Do I have a second?
Second.
There's been a motion made by Scott Willis, seconded by Joe Edwards to approve the minutes. Let's do this by voice vote by acclamation. Everybody in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Minutes have been approved. The next item on the agenda is our claims docket. Does anyone have any questions regarding the claims docket for April 26th? Hearing no questions, I'd entertain a motion to approve that claims docket.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Jake Gilbert voted, or has made the motion, and seconded by Scott Fry. Again, by acclamation. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Claims docket has been approved. There is no miscellaneous business slated for this evening, so we'll move on to old business. First item of old business is ordinance 21-02, the Sanders Glen PUD. This ordinance had a council introduction on January 11th, went to APC public hearing on February 1st, APC recommendation on April 19th. Last week, we've had a favorable recommendation of 9-0, and I'm going to turn it over to the developer now for presentation.
Good evening, Mr. President and council members. I'm Andrew Greenwood with Patch Development. Here with me is Pat Chinden. We're here to present or represent the Sanders Glen PUD. As a refresher, we're located, the site is located just west of the City Services Building, south of the Midland Trace Trail, east of Sanders Glen Assisted Living, and north of 171st Street. After a series of meetings with staff, the APC, and multiple stakeholders, we've amended the master plan as follows. If you go to the next page, you'll see here we've reduced the number of units to no more than 13 single-family for-sale residential units on the east side and 42 units of age-restricted senior cottage units. By reducing this, we were able to reduce the size of the pond, which also allowed us to keep the trail in its existing configuration, and allows us to maintain the trees to the north as well. So we've significantly increased the open space and the amenities as well. Go to the next slide. You can see here we've added a park area, pickleball courts, bike parking, and bench swings, along with additional plantings and shielding from the residential units to 171st Street and to the neighbors. The homes in Area 2 require materials and layouts comparable to Chatham Hills and other luxury home subdivisions. These side load or courtyard load garage homes don't have any front-facing garages and will be high quality on the east side of the project. The next slide shows the cottage units, which will be identical to what is currently just west of Sanders Glen Assisted Living. These are under construction, will be opened in about 30 days, so it's going to be almost identical, maybe a little different color schemes here and there, but identical elevations and renderings and materials. The next slide shows some of these materials a little bit better. Brick, hardy siding, all in a craftsman style home looking building. The next slide shows you some an interior picture that shows the quality finishes, granite countertops, attractive cabinetry, nice appliances, quality lighting, and vaulted ceilings. The next slide is just a reminder that we're located less than 1,500 feet from the Simonman Park, 2,500 feet from Grand Junction Park and Plaza, right on the Midland Trace Trail and adjacent to the Sanders Glen Assisted Living facility as well. Along with our additional open park amenity, we feel like we've really added a lot of quality open park and amenities for the residents of this community as well. Next slide shows just, again, how we've worked hard to listen to the comments and work with the staff and the APC to design this property with park cottages and homes that work well with their neighbors. The last slide is just a note again from the city engineer verifying that this intersection is not a traffic concern. It has a four-way stop, so we thank you for your time, welcome any questions, and ask you to adopt for approval tonight, Sanders Glen PUD.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions from the council?
I do. I have two questions. One, there was the development with the lake just west of you was required to put in a sidewalk. Are you putting in a sidewalk as a continuation of that?
Are you talking about on 171st Street?
Yes.
Yes,
On the north
we'll
side.
work with staff on the development plan to install that sidewalk as well.
Okay. What about the drainage? Is there a permit required to drain across to the east, down to the creek?
We've worked with staff, our engineers have worked with staff along with the county to make sure that we're able to take care of that in a proper fashion.
Is that correct?
Well, yeah, so they're at the zoning phase right now. Subsequent phases for plating and development plan, that's when those details will be resolved with the county surveyor's office, and any necessary permits will be obtained at that time.
Well, I know a prior developer had some trouble securing permission to drain across that property to the east, so that would be your problem now.
Yeah, we've met with the county surveyor, and we think we have a way to go ahead and get that taken care of that the prior developer was unable to do. But we don't have a permit as of today because we haven't submitted.
So you can't
Yeah.
start construction until you have that permit?
Correct.
So this is in my district, and there were some, my HOA, actually of my neighborhood, Oak Manor, and a few of the residents were very much against this development when it was initially presented. I did follow back up with them after it was presented to APC the second time, and they're all in favor of it now for the most part. So I appreciate you guys working with a lot of people to come up with a design that makes sense for that area and that makes everybody happy. So I appreciate the hard work there.
I'd like to ask, the cottages to the west of Sanders Glen, are you already selling those? I know they're being completed, but are they?
Yeah, they're rental units, and then we already have a handful of leases, so as soon as
Yeah,
we
that's,
can.
how's it going? I mean,
Well,
is-
It's going well. We
the
already have a
demand
handful
is
of
there?
people waiting to move in, so we're
Okay.
just trying to finalize the construction and get people moved in.
Well, thanks for the improvements on this. I feel like it's come a far way.
Kevin, before we call for a motion, do we need to include the sidewalk in the PUD, or you'll handle that?
Nope, that's already a requirement. That's an underlying requirement in the UDO that is already applicable.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve ordinance 21-02, Sanders Glen PUD?
So moved.
Do I have a
I'll second
second?
that. I'll second it.
Okay, motion has been made by Cindy Spaljerek, seconded by Scott Willis. Cindy, could you please call the vote?
Yeah. Mike Johns,
Yes?
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Ray Patton,
Yes, I think you said Troy Patton, correct?
yes, I did. Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Cindy Spaljerik,
Yes.
Scott Willis,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you.
The next ordinance under old business is ordinance 21-07, Midland South PUD. This ordinance had a council introduction on February 8th, a APC public hearing on March 1st. It went to the APC for recommendation on April 19th and received a favorable 8-0 recommendation. And it's up for adoption and consideration this evening. And I think Justin Moffett from Old Town is going to address the project.
Good evening. Justin Moffett on behalf of Old Town. As you acknowledged, Mr. Johns, that we were at the APC at the March meeting and the April meeting, and just a few concerns that were brought up that I wanted to address tonight that resulted in some modest adjustments to the plans. The primary concern raised in the public realm was the relationship with the Midland Trace Trail and how we would interface with that. Additionally, at the public hearing, there was a neighbor that had some questions about drainage and site distance issues at the corner of Roosevelt and Cherry. So we worked with staff to address those concerns when we came back to the APC last week. What we agreed on was treating the trail condition with kind of a hybrid approach. In the UDO, there's not a requirement of buffering between adjacent properties because we have a residential project adjacent to another residential project. So what we voluntarily submitted to was there's a classification in the UDO that's, I think, it's labeled as A buffering. It's the most relevant to this situation. And so the text change that made it into the PUD was that we would have a 25-foot setback from the edge of trail to the building face of any buildings, of which 15 would be a buffer yard requirement that would be green space that could be planted using the A classification within the PUD. And that met with the approval of the APC. There are not a lot of quality trees within that area today, so it wasn't about a tree preservation zone. It was really just making sure that we had enough buffer area to replant, and so that made it into the updated PUD. Another adjustment since we were last at council was to put to place a sunset provision, sunset clause on the ordinance. I know that's a loaded topic. I think there is some relevance to not having sunset clauses in certain situations for large master plan communities that were approved in past generations, but I think specific to this situation where it's a PUD that has very specific use type, it should not take very long to build, and we intend to start immediately. We thought it was reasonable to add that sunset provision in there. Another question that came up was the requirement of using the character images as the benchmark for final plans. We certainly provided elevations, and I don't know if they're in the packet or not, but we had provided character images to go with our PUD request, but there wasn't language that specifically tied the requirement of these elevations in the document. So that was a change that was requested by the APC, which we are glad to accommodate because this is our intended product. So with that, there was very little other discussion about changes to the site plan. I think there was a final request of a 10-foot buffer between Westfield Friends Church and this property, which we accommodated. It was already in our plans, but we just clarified that in the text, that was a commitment. So with that, we respectfully request your positive consideration of this PUD tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Justin, comments? Councilor?
Justin, they won't share the driveway behind the church, will they?
No, sir. It has its own private ingress egress to the development.
And there is a buffer.
Yes, sir.
Other comments? I'd like to make one comment in that I think it's a great project from the standpoint that we are bringing homeowners to our downtown area. Residents are going to live there and be financially committed to the area and to the growth. And so I think it's a wonderful project. Appreciate your time and effort. So, do I have a motion then to approve ordinance 21-07, the Midland South PUD?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
The motion was made by Cindy Spoljarek, seconded by Joe Edwards. Cindy Gasser, could you please call the roll?
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Cindy Spalgeri,
Yes.
Scott Willis,
Yes.
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Joy Patton,
Yes.
Joe Edwards, Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Mike Johns.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
The next item on our agenda is ordinance 21-08, the Union Square PUD Amendment 1. It had a council introduction on February 8th, APC hearing on March 1st, APC recommendation last week on April 19th, and comes to us with a favorable recommendation of 9-0 for adoption consideration this evening. Justin?
Good evening. Once again, Justin Moffett on behalf of Old Town Companies. For public record, the image on the screen here is around 5 acres, just over 5 acres north of the Midland Trail, immediately east of Grand Junction Plaza. This is an amendment to the PUD that was approved in 2019 by the Westfield City Council for the Union Square mixed-use development. We're seeking to add this property into the overall development area with a mix of multifamily housing and main level commercial space available along the Union Street frontage facing the park. Through our APC conversation, a few issues came up that were worth noting that made some adjustments to the PUD from when we were last at council. Again, the trail conversation, this is the north side of the trail. And just for your awareness, we were working with a seller that had both properties on the north and south side of the trail. That's how we ended up with both of these parcels. We committed to a similar treatment, buffering treatment that we did for the Midland South project with that 25-foot from building face to edge of trail, with 15 of it being a landscape buffer. We also committed to no more than 4 stories in height. That was a concern raised that, anytime we talk about downtown that's experiencing a renaissance, we're always having to talk about context sensitivity. How do we transition from newer, higher density uses to existing residential? And so we're trying to scale down from maybe what could be 5 stories at the main Union Square project, the original approved area, down to 4 stories here, and then we have 3-story townhomes on the south side of the trail, and then you get into single family in the existing residential neighborhood. So we thought that was a reasonable request by the APC to commit to 4 stories maximum on this site. And then the final issue was the 5-year sunset clause on this PUD. We think that's a reasonable request. We fully expect if we haven't started by then, there's a problem, and we'll probably be coming back to council anyhow for some sort of adjustment if we hadn't started. So as a timeline, if we continue down a positive path, working with council and city administration on, the parking solutions discussed for Union Square, we would start with the original project. If you scroll down one, the phase 1 within the coming year, and then we would move on to phase 2 in 2023 approximately. So the amended area that we're asking approval for tonight is a future phase. We've been working collaboratively with the mayor's office on demoing the existing structure on this expansion area to provide some additional surface parking immediately. So we'd like to see that accomplished here in the next 4 to 6 weeks. So we hope to make this usable for public parking in the interim until we develop it, but we see this as a phase 2 of the overall project. With that, I'll stop and glad to answer any questions you have remaining. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilors, questions?
That parking is all required for what's being erected there.
What you see in this image is well in excess of what we would need. Our objective in creating this land plan was to create parking that would serve as additional publicly available parking in addition to what we would need.
And that parking stays regardless of what happens in the future with other projects?
Yes, I think the goal is to maintain public parking if we develop this as intended. If for some reason we don't move forward with some parking solution in project 1 with a parking garage as anticipated, it might change what we have to do here. I guess I would have clarified. We are not gifting land to the city as public parking through this ordinance. We are, this is all part of a strategy that's combined with the parking garage project. So this is amended PUD. So we're expanding the footprint of a PUD. So we have to go back through the APC process to get approval for our final development plans. And as I think we're all aware, we still have multiple steps to go in the city considering the adoption of some sort of public-private partnership to fund a parking structure. But should that not move forward, we would have piece of land that has a PUD attached to it that we would need to figure out how to develop. So in the interim, until that's resolved, we're saying that there is publicly available parking here. We're going to have a surface lot that people can park on.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Council? Okay, hearing no other questions, then I'll call a motion. Do I have a motion for approval of ordinance 21-08, the Union Square PUD Amendment 1?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 21-08 Union Square PUD Amendment 1.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion has been made by Scott Willis, seconded by Joe Edwards. Cindy, would you call the roll, please?
Scott Willis,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Cindy Spalgeric,
yes,
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Troy Patton.
yes,
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you for your time tonight.
Justin, thank you, congratulations, and I look forward to working with you more in that parking garage, see if we can put it together.
Looking forward to working with you too. Thank you.
Thank you. Next piece of old business is ordinance 21-09, which is the Harmony PUD amendment for the Kitty Academy. It had a council introduction on February 8th, APC public hearing on March 1st, APC recommendation on April 19th. I believe it was unanimously recommended. And an it's up for consideration at the council this evening. And Kevin, do we have anyone that's going to present this?
I do believe the petitioner's representative is on the call this evening. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, this is Josh Rogers.
Go ahead, Josh.
Thank you, members of the council. My name is Josh Rogers with American Structure Point. We represent Woodmont for this petition. As you can see, we're proposing a monument sign on the southeast corner of Lot 2B. The current Harmony PUD doesn't allow for an additional monument sign. However, brand standards for Kitty Academy, they typically want to see a monument sign for their sites, as well as this sign will serve to delineate from the Kitty Academy the undeveloped lot to the north, which is Lot 2A, which we have added into the language of the ordinance. Basically, this sign will serve to delineate any sort of traffic coming from the west, which is Kitty Academy, and any sort of future development on Lot 2A. We are showing four sconces that face down on this sign, which have been the focus of most of the public comments on this. On the phone, I also have Grant Gary, who's with Woodmont, who can speak to more specifics of the daily operation of Kitty Academy, for which most of the public comments have been about, specifically the lights. But as you can see, the monument sign matches more or less what is already existing in the roundabout for the Harmony development. And not too much more to say on the sign. As you can see, there's the Kitty Academy, and whatever future business would be proposed would be underneath in the four sconces you can see above that sign. I'm not sure, Grant, if you want to add anything more specific to that.
Good evening, this is Grant Gary with the Woodmont Company. At this point, I don't think there's a lot to add. I'll just say there were some takeaways from the previous two meetings as it related to some lights on the building, and we are in the process of setting the timers to ensure that those the gooseneck lights lighting the building signs are going off, or turning off rather, at appropriate hours. So that's actively in motion. The facility is not yet completed. They're close to being ready to open for business. So that, just wanted to make one comment. That was an item that we definitely have been actively addressing, separate and apart from this monument sign. But I think outside of that, no. Again, big part of it was the directional, the wayfinding here for the adjacent lot in the overall development as well.
I do want to add that in the text of the ordinance itself, we did add a line item for the monument sign, that the lines on the monument sign would be off no later than 30 minutes after close of business of whichever of the two developments closed later. That was requested by the Plan Commission last week. Other than that, I think that's about it, and we'll take whatever questions you have.
Thank you, Brent. Josh. Any questions, councilors?
No, I just want to make it known I'll be abstaining from a vote on this.
All right, if I hear no questions or comments, further questions or comments, do I have a motion to approve ordinance 21-09, Harmony PUD Amendment, Kitty Academy?
I move that we approve ordinance 21-09.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, the motion's been made by Scott Fry, seconded by Jake Gilbert. Cindy, would you please call the roll?
I hear Scott Willis is going to abstain.
Yes, Scott Willis abstained.
Thank you. Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Cindy Spalgeri,
Yes.
Troy Patton,
Yes.
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
6-1, one abstain.
Cindy, would you say that again?
Yeah, motion carries 6-1, one abstain.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
6-0 with one abstaining.
Was there, yeah, that's 6-0, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Yes.
Yeah, so I heard, okay. The next item on the old business, ordinance 21-17, the North Point PUD Amendment 4. This had a council introduction on March 8th, followed by an APC hearing on April 5th, APC recommendation on April 19th, a unanimous recommendation, and it's up for adoption consideration this evening. Kevin, do we have anyone here to speak on behalf of the ordinance?
Yeah, I'll just briefly introduce this one, or refresh your memory on this one. This is an amendment to the architectural requirements for the remaining undeveloped portion of North Point. Really, it provides an architectural option that we currently don't have for this type of structure regarding the facade and building bump outs and different architectural character. It provides the option to either follow the UDO requirement, which is an offset at a certain distance, or you can provide a similar kind of visual offset, if you will, with a variation in color and or materials. So Chris Wilkes is on the line. He's able to answer any specific questions you might have about this, but as mentioned, this comes to you with a unanimous favorable recommendation from the Plan Commission.
Thanks, Kevin. Councilors, any questions for Mr. Wilkes?
Chris, why would we need this?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Why would we need this?
The current ordinance, Councilor Gilbert, requires an offset, foundational offset every 60 feet. And in these type of buildings that we're finding up at North Point, this type of relief was sought and granted by previous APCs and previous councils for Bastion, Abbott Labs, and Gordon. And so those type of users have more of a horizontal footprint. So when you have to offset foundations every 60 feet, what you end up, you add a lot of cost to the construction of the buildings. And in the end, you end up with essentially inefficient space. So imagine an advanced manufacturer who is
covets floor space. So if you have a foundational offset, so a 4-foot kick out from your wall, you can't do anything with that 4 feet. Or conversely, if you have a 4-foot inset, it's even worse, right? So the provision really runs counter to what we're trying to achieve up there. And so but recognizing that the intent is to break up what we don't want to have, the city doesn't want, nor do we, you don't want a really expansive horizontal, call it, undistinguishable, look. So what we've said is, instead of requiring the offset every 60 feet per the ordinance, we can increase that offset to 120. So we do have the offsets, it's important to note. But what we do is, in that 60-foot span, what we do, and it's illustrated in that character exhibit, we change vertically the look of the building in terms of paint or materials. So we break up that horizontal view, right? And furthermore, we break the roof line of the building just to give that variety of architectural and look. So we're achieving the same effect of that offset, but we're doing it in a different way. So again, this is consistent with what has been sought and required in order to recruit the advanced manufacturing footprint that we have up there. So the thought here is, rather than just having every user likely request this, is just amend the overall North Point PUD to accommodate this element that's, again, been sought after by the users up there.
I would just add to it that the end purpose and the end visual, I think, is being met with this new proposal. Having personally built a number of warehouses and manufacturing facilities and been a user, I can tell you that the bump outs are, to a certain extent, are not desirable by the users. So I think this particular change makes a lot of sense economically for the user and for folks that are going to be moving and living and bringing their businesses to Westfield. So that's why I supported it at the APC, and I believe it's the right thing to do. So, any other questions or comments, councilors? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve ordinance 21-17, the North Point PUD Amendment 4?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Motion made by Joe Edwards, seconded by Scott Willis. Cindy, please call the roll.
Excuse me, Troy Patton,
Yes.
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Cindy Spalcheri,
Yes.
Kate Gilbert,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Willett.
Thank you, Cindy.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, counselors.
Thanks, Chris. The next item on the agenda is the project and funding agreement for the Nicholas Baker Cabin. This had a council introduction on April 12th and is up for adoption consideration tonight. You should have a copy of the project agreement and the funding agreement on file. And I'm not sure, Manny, are you going to address this?
Yeah, happy to answer any questions. At the last council meeting, just so everybody recalls, council authorized Ms. Spoljarek, Mr. Edwards to work with me and Ms. Poindexter to kind of finalize these documents and work with the society to do the same. I appreciate everybody's time. We had very productive meetings, both separately and with the society, implemented some changes that were useful, and advice was followed to how to move forward. So these are in final form. The only thing that is outstanding is The society is working on a description of exactly the amount and type of, the amount of the property and how it needs it. It doesn't need the entire parcel. That's an issue. It doesn't want the entire parcel. So they're working on that, and they're working on obtaining an adequate amount of insurance within a price point they can afford. So they're working on their end to finalize those two issues with the lease, but everything else should be ready to go. Happy to answer any questions.
Manny, can we approve this? You know, I think there was a hangup where we were going to require the Historical Society to have $5 million of liability, and they found that premium probably, as it goes through the years, pretty high. They didn't think they could meet it. So did we lower the liability, or what?
Yeah, that was up to the council. I responded to Ms. Bogel's question on that. The issue is it was a 1 million per occurrence limit and a 5 million umbrella. The Tort Claims Act in Indiana, the full extent of the liability is 7.5, so those numbers were low to begin with. But given it's not going to be continual use, they're going to have insurance coverage anyway. The council can consider that a lower umbrella amount, probably. I think if they got to 3, that would be adequate to protect the city. But beyond that, everything should be fine.
I think that was the only hangup that I knew.
I think that's right. Yep, I think that's right.
Manny, do we need to acknowledge that or say that within this?
No, because remember, there's a weird quirk where the city doesn't actually own that parcel, and so you won't be approving it anyway. But if the council can acknowledge that if it's comfortable with a lower umbrella, that will probably be good. So that way, once the lease comes back to you for just to review again, that will be in the record.
I think, what, 3 million was mentioned?
I think that'd be adequate with the 1 million per occurrence and a 3 million umbrella. That should be fine. If it ends up working out financially.
Okay, with
I
that.
would appreciate that. I would appreciate that change. This is Cindy.
Can we move and approve this without that, or do we just acknowledge that we're gonna change that?
Sure. Mr. Fry, do you have a question?
I just wanted to clearly understand what Ms. Boljaric said.
Cindy, could you restate what you just said?
Instead of having the $5 million umbrella, I do believe a $3 million is still wholly appropriate right now. When you look at something like the Playhouse, they don't carry that. And with the little use this is going to have by multiple people all the time, I'm not very concerned from that regard. So lowering that is preferential for me, knowing that the Historical Society has limited funds.
I would move that we approve this funding agreement for the Nicholas Barker cabin, acknowledging the $3 million liability.
For the lease. Okay, so I would request 2 motions, one for the funding agreement and one for the project agreement.
All right.
They're 2 separate documents.
All right. Do I have a motion then for the project agreement, incorporating the $3 million umbrella
Within the
liability
lease,
within
yeah.
the project agreement?
I moved it, yeah.
Okay, have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Motion's been made then by Joe Edwards, seconded by Scott Fry, to approve the project portion of the agreement. Cindy, could you please call the roll?
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Troy Patton,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Cindy Spallier,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Scott Willis.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right, then I guess the next step is to entertain an ordinance for the approval of the funding agreement
Yes, sir.
for the Nicholas Barker cabin. Do I have a motion to do so?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second. I would make mention that here, that they're probably not gonna get started for some time because the cabin master he's booked up, basically. And so they need somebody that knows how to do this to make it appropriate. So it could even be next spring before they start.
Yeah, that's a great point, and that's why we're comfortable from a liability standpoint, still working out the kinks with the lease, because they're not gonna be close to using them and utilizing the land for a while.
Okay. I think we have a motion to approve it, a second by Joe Edwards. Cindy Gasser, could you call the roll?
Cindy Spalgeri,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Scott Willis,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Troy Patton,
Yes.
Mike John.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay. Moving on then to ordinance 21-26, additional appropriation for the Baker Cabin. And this had a council introduction also on April 12th, and is up for adoption consideration this evening. And Joe, can you explain what the,
Well, it's $140,000 total, but there was some consternation about what A1A forms were. And I used to have an uncle who was an architect, so I knew what that stood for. And basically, it's just a form where you put your invoices together and kind of say, here are the costs of the project that we're doing. And so what we're going to do, or what we propose to do, is that the first 50,000 would probably go out almost at once, then the next 50,000, a little later when they get into the meat of the thing, and then the last 40 would be the finish up of it. And so I think that's basically what we've agreed to.
Yep, that's perfect, and this just memorializes the fact that the council authorized the 140,000. Since it wasn't in the original budget, they would need an additional appropriation. And so if you think about it, the funding agreement, the project agreement are the buckets, and this is what goes in the buckets. So now upon adoption, the city would be able to disperse those funds under the guidance and the terms of those agreements.
thank you, Manny.
Yes, sir.
Councilors, any questions? Comments?
Just to clarify something, Mike.
Yes, Cindy.
They will be coming and giving us reports in terms of how that money was spent, and so we'll see those invoices. So before they get their next tranche of money, if you will, we'll be getting information about how the prior funds were spent. I just wanted to clarify that. Thanks.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve ordinance 21-26, the additional appropriation for the Baker Cabin?
So moved.
Have a second?
I'll
Second.
Motion made by Joe Edwards, seconded by Cindy Spalgeric. Cindy Gossard, could you please call the roll?
Okay, Scott Fry,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Mike John,
Yes.
Scott Willis,
Yes.
Cindy Spalgeri,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Troy Patton.
Yes.
That motion carries 7-0.
That concludes our old business. Moving on to new business this evening, we only have one item. That's Resolution 21-112, City of Westfield, Indiana, finding the property owners are in substantial compliance for tax abatement purposes. It's up for adoption consideration this evening, and I think Kai Chuck is going to talk to us about this resolution.
Good evening, councilors. For the record, Kai Chuck, Economic Development Director. I present to you for your consideration this annual compliance of the current companies and property owners that have a tax abatement that is currently active. Part of the process for tax abatement is the companies must submit a CF1 form to the city for us to approve. Part of that is for us to make sure the company is compliant with the original SB1 form that the company and property owner submitted in the original abatement process. If you scroll down a bit, you can see most of the companies have listed their investment in terms of job creation and salaries. we did not find any company that's not in compliance compared to the SB1. So tonight, we ask that you approve the CF1 forms and compliance forms. So after they are approved by the city council and signed by the clerk's office, we will submit them to the Hamilton County Clerk's office. I'm here to answer any questions if anyone has a desire to ask questions. Thank you very much.
Councilors, comments, questions?
Mike, this is Cindy Spoljaric. I do have a few questions. I noticed that third dimension, it looked like their estimated salaries were supposed to be 1.2, and they're only at 400,000.
Which,
and then
excuse me.
third dimension,
Yes, third dimension is a little bit behind, but not something that's concern of overall. They had a little bit down year due to the pandemic. But if we want to discuss that with the company, we definitely can.
okay, and then we also had Grinds, which they had 22 employees, they retained 9, added 13, which puts them back at 22 employees. But they had an estimate of adding 56.
Yes, that was again a little bit because of the pandemic and the cause of the little bit of the slowdown because of that pandemic. And again, we can discuss that with them offline to if you have an issue moving forward.
Okay, I also saw a little bit differences here in the round trippers in Shelby. Both were lower. Shelby being their net value was let's see, estimated at 3.8 million, and it's at 2.8.
That's correct. And again, it was that's sort of the.
Is that fully assessed?
Yes, they're not fully assessed in that particular situation. They decided to actually submit. The county suggested that they could do that. They would get the full assessment a little bit later on this year.
Okay, thank you.
Good questions, comments? Kai, I would ask that you do go back and talk to those companies, and I don't think you have to give us a report, but I'm just concerned, obviously, with the pandemic, that it could be affecting them in other ways too. So I'd like to make sure we're on top of that, trying to help them any way we can.
I will. There are some other companies, because of the pandemic, they did not submit because of the companies did not complete construction, and the assessments are a little bit behind. But I will talk to the companies.
If you, as you go through those numbers, if you feel that it's appropriate to come back before the council 2 or 3 months from now and update us, that would be wonderful. I'll leave it up to your expertise.
I will do. Thank you.
Moving on, the next item on the agenda is guests. If we have any residents who would wish to address the council on items not on the agenda, they may do so at this time. And I would remind everybody that they have basically 3 minutes time frame to make their address. So, Kevin?
Yeah, we're going to vote on this
we never-
resolution.
Oh, we didn't vote. Well, thank you. Things were moving much too quickly tonight here. All right. Can I ask for a motion to approve Resolution 21-112?
Motion to approve Resolution 21-112.
Do you have a second?
I'll second it.
Motion has been made to approve Resolution 21-112, and by Jake Gilbert, seconded by Scott Fry. Cindy Gosser, would you please call the roll?
Cindy Spalcheri,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Troy Patton. Troy Patton, Mike Johns,
Yes.
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Jake Gifford,
Yes.
Scott Willis.
Yes.
All right, we'll try Troy Patton again.
Yes.
Okay. All
Yes.
right, motion carries 7-0.
All right, thank you, Cindy. All right, now moving on to guests. Residents who wish to address the council on items not on the agenda may do so at this time.
Yeah,
Kevin.
we have two cards at the moment. First card, Darren Peterson.
Thank you. I'm Darren Peterson, President of the Noblesville City Council. I have with me tonight Greg O'Connor, Council Member, Ali Krupski, Director of Engineering, and Megan Wiles, the Vice President of the Noblesville City Council. And thank you. It's a little unusual to come speak tonight, but I appreciate you having me here, and I would like to invite you as we discuss more regional context issues as we continue to be in the fastest growing county in the state. I would encourage you to come to our meetings. I enjoy this kind of dialogue. My cell phone number is 317-590-0493. I encourage you, if you have anything you want to talk about, it's an open dialogue. As members of the Noblesville City Council, we understand the importance and duty of making fiscal decisions for the growth of our growing cities in Hamilton County. We're often faced with decisions that must balance existing constraints, growth, historical significance, financial responsibilities. With approximately 19,000 vehicles driving this two-lane roadway each day, there is no question that State Road 32 through Hamilton County is in dire need of capacity improvement. Westfield has a great opportunity for a 50-50 partnership with NDOT on this project. Most importantly, cost and risk will be shared, including cost overruns if bids come in higher than anticipated. This partnership allows the city to incorporate design features which NDOT would not otherwise consider, including constructing a roundabout at East Street, widening the sidewalks, burying utilities, and adding aesthetic features along the corridor. Currently, Noblesville is making significant investments to fix the same capacity problems in our own downtown. We understand the regional significance of 32, not only to our city, but across central Indiana, connecting I-65 and 69. NDOT has publicly stated that they have funded a $35 million project to add travel lanes from East Street in Westfield to River Road in Noblesville. This would connect both Noblesville and Westfield's committed downtown projects. Westfield canceling their downtown project would result in NDOT's reevaluating their investment and possibly canceling any future investment along 32 in Hamilton County. This would have detrimental effects beyond Westfield borders into Noblesville and throughout the county and state. Millions of dollars have been spent in the city of Westfield, by the city of Westfield, the state of Indiana, and the city of Noblesville to design improvements along 32. The Noblesville City Council strongly requests that the Westfield Council trust their hired professional staff, consultants, and recommendations to move forward with their own downtown project. This project is vital for our downtowns to continue to grow and thrive, and please can reconsider the proposed ordinance for the benefit of not just the citizens of Westfield, but the citizens of all of Hamilton County and across Indiana. Thank you.
17 seconds left. You want to yield back your time?
Kevin, next card,
We
please.
do have another card, Ron Moore. It was 3 minutes, right? Is that the custom? Okay.
Good evening, council, mayor. I came here tonight with good news. I think you may have all heard it, but I want to make it part of the record. And I would like to say congratulations to the mayor and all the residents of the city of Westfield, Indiana, that worked over the last decade and a half to produce a city that we can all be proud of today. You see, last Tuesday, Gary Deck of Inside Indiana Business published a study, or I should say a ranking of the top fastest growing suburbs in the United States of America. And that survey was, or that study was done by Homes.com, which took a look at a lot of the things that you would have from a financial standpoint. They had a criteria they graded them all against, which was home prices, size of homes, yard size, income to housing price ratio, work from home scores and capabilities, schools, crime index, and diversity. After looking at the entire nation and scoring a number of growing suburbs throughout the country, they came to the conclusion that Westfield, Indiana is the is the best place to move in 2021. Now, we can say that we're the best of the best, I guess. However, we didn't get here by chance. We got here by taking a lot of hard work. It took a lot of people working together 15 years ago to develop the vision to define what we want to be. It took hard work of those who built the Westfield standard that drove how we built our neighborhoods. It took a lot of developers who designed the products that met those standards to build those neighborhoods, and the work of the city employees who day in, day out tirelessly worked to make sure that developers met those standards. Let's not forget the fact that the city council and the city administration throughout that time worked tirelessly to identify where they could finance all that infrastructure that would support all that building, and at the same time created a way to ensure that the debt could be repaid. There's thousands of hours of meetings, discussions, and planning, I'm sure, that went into every one of those points to be able to say that we're the best of the best. So, I not only say congratulations to all those people, but I also say, as a resident who enjoys all the benefits of the things that you work so hard to build, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Do we have any other residents who wish to address the council?
I have no cards at this time.
Okay, thank you. Hearing none, let's move on to city council comments. First of all, Cindy Spalgera, can you give us a report from the APC meeting on April 19th?
I certainly can. On our consent agenda, we had the Sunbelt Detailed Development Plan and also the Wheeler Landing Apartments. So that was great to hear. Both of those will be moving forward. We approved a plat, and it was actually a plat amendment and an overall development plan for one lot on 21 acres in North Point. And the rest were actually recommendation considerations for projects that we voted on tonight. So that was it. Thanks.
Thanks, Cindy. Okay, do I have a report from the Oversight Committee? I think,
Yeah.
Jake, we got Jake?
You want to give it?
Want to talk?
Go ahead.
Well, you want to talk about the audit and
The
I'll
audit.
talk about the other?
Yeah, we've got, the Oversight Committee presently is working on the audits. There are two audits here as we go forward. One of them is for the 2020 year, which is past, which can be done by a contractor from the State Board of Accounts, probably Crow Chiswick would do it, but they would assign some CPA firm to come and do their audit to their standards, whatever that would be. The second audit is for the 2021 year, in which we are probably a little bit late in asking our preference for a fully integrated CPA audit. I don't know whether Noblesville does this or not, Greg, but we are going to ask permission of the State Board of Accounts to employ a CPA firm to do an extensive audit, basically to the State Board of Accounts standards and to answer certain questions that they may have. Our attorneys are working on this, and we have to name, there's what is it? Not a controller, but somebody who kind of oversees this, overlooks this.
Internal Control Coordinator, yeah.
And then also that we must name a three-member committee, one is an appointee of the mayor, one is appointee of the city council, and another is appointee of a certified public accountant, probably a local CPA or whoever we would choose, that would actually help in choosing the firm that's going to do this. Now, I'm probably leaving out a lot of steps, Ann, but this is basically how we do it. And for that, we will pay a bigger fee than we would pay the State Board of Accounts. But we also get, I think, a bigger insight. Fishers presently does this. I don't know whether Noblesville does it or not. But as we get into pretty highly leveraged things, it's necessary that we have a good financial look-see about what's going on. And that, Fishers does this. I think Carmel has done this also, I believe. So that's what we're currently working on. Jake, if you'd like to add anything to that. But there's a binder of, a thick binder of things that we could look into. We'll never have time to get all that done, but not in my lifetime anyhow. Maybe Jake's, but not mine. Okay, that's all I have.
Thanks, Joe. And then Jake, you were going to talk about the legal inquiry.
Sure, I just to make sure the public knows, we are working on it. We've had excellent cooperation from Taft, Manny Herzog, and then Webster and Greeno, Will Webster. There's some more information coming this week with a little more up-to-date charges and so forth. Can't really comment on litigation, but I just would like to say that both sides have been very cooperative and transparent with the information in a timely manner, and would like to say thank you for that. I'd also like to give a report on the WCW, if that's okay. So since we're a little faster meeting, I thought this would maybe be a good time to get everyone caught up on the Wellbeing Coalition. So the Wellbeing Coalition, still just trying to create a community here where all can thrive and trying to serve the well-being of all of our residents. Just want to point out that we have started on a regular routine where we offer mental health training monthly in our city for the first time, and I think that's a huge achievement, and I'm very proud of that. This past Sunday and next Sunday, in conjunction with Parent University, we have a Zoom call that's anyone can sign up to be a part of for mental health training. Next month, we will go to QPR, which is essentially training what would you do if a loved one or a friend was potentially considering suicide, what would you do? So each month, we're going to have a little bit of a different flavor on the training, and then they'll recycle and repeat. But I'm proud to say that we have that up and going. On the outreach front, we have scheduled 3 events where we are going to go to communities that maybe are not quite as well versed and maybe do not have the online access that many of our residents do to find out about some of the great services that our nonprofits provide in this city. So that's a real challenge, is that our nonprofits are here and desperate to serve some of our underprivileged residents, but they're not always aware of all the services that exist, and we're in a society where everything's advertised online. And so we have 3 events scheduled where we will have papers in hand, translated in multiple languages, apps, because most people do have cell phone apps to find locations, and just information on some of our great food pantries and clinics and various nonprofits out there that serve the people. And then lastly, on the connections front, which really is just an opportunity as we grow as a city to remain, having that intimate town feel where we connect people to people. We've worked closely with Angie Frazier, who's been excellent, Steve Latour from the Chamber, who's outstanding, and they really hit it out of the park with big ticket events, both now and for the future and planning, and they're doing a terrific job there. And then the Wellbeing Coalition has started in May. We will start having regular small group connection events to allow people to get connected more topically. It could be book discussions, movie nights, art shows, meetings with public officials, discussions on hard questions. So we have several things in the till, and just really excited that after a long time of being locked in, it feels like we are starting to come back and our city can connect again, whether it be new residents looking to make friends or whether it be old residents looking to reestablish relationships. So that's a little bit of an update on the Wellbeing Coalition.
Thanks, Jake. Thank you so much. Troy Patton, do you have a report on the Finance Committee?
I have none. We're just starting the budget process. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Comments from Scott Fry? Scott Willis? Okay, all right. My only comment today is just kind of to talk a little bit about the cat and the canary here. The State Road 32, as you know, we put tabled that ordinance for tonight's meeting. We tabled it because we are still gathering information. The city administration has provided us with a fair amount of financial information now. We thank you. We had a meeting, two other counselors and I had a meeting with, Zoom meeting with INDOT last week. They provided us with quite a bit of financial information. We also had an opportunity to discuss with them a little bit of information regarding the design for the proposed road. It became pretty clear that we as a council as a whole we haven't really all seen the design. So we made the request that INDOT have a meeting to update us. They've agreed to do that. I believe Jeremy Lawler and Jonathan Nail are working with INDOT to arrange that meeting now, and that's going to, I think, take place next week. And that will be open to the public. It will be an open forum meeting. I don't know what the structure of that meeting will be yet, so we're looking forward to finding out more. Hopefully it will be a meeting that will allow residents to give their input and ask questions from both INDOT, the city, and Structure Point, the design company. So obviously we're going to move ahead and try to gather much more information, and then we'll circle back with the residents and try to address financial concerns and talk maybe a little bit about the design concerns too. So that's all I have tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, just to add a little more detail, that meeting will be May 4th. INDOT will have a public meeting. They will have stations set up with our engineers, Structure Point, several of the INDOT people to discuss everything from financials to the design criteria, the history, the historical mitigation that we're going through. The meeting will be at the Grand Park Event Center, as it will be open to the public. We'll also declare it a working session of the council, so all 7 members can be present at one time to answer any and all questions from all persons involved in this project. So that'll be May 4, and I hope you will all attend. And that's what I have.
Do we have a time yet, Mayor? Do you have a time?
Vicki Duncan Gardner, do we have a time? 6 to 8 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay. With that said, I'm going to adjourn the meeting for this evening. Thank you.